Today's game features Ilena Krasenkova playing as white against Mikhail Tal as black. Move 1. White pawn to d4, keeping options open. Black pawn to e6, preventing counterplay. White establishes a pawn on c4, improving the worst-placed piece. Next, maneuvers the knight to f6, we have the queen's pawn game. Move 5. White pawn to g3. Black activates the bishop early, checking the exposed king. White deploys the bishop to d2. At this point, black pushes to c5. White brings the knight to f3. Black queen moves to b6. White takes the bishop with the bishop. So, queen captures bishop. Check. White deploys the queen to d2. Black queen takes the pawn. On move 15, white knight hops to a3. Black responds with repositions the queen to a4, activity on the queenside. Interestingly, white repositions the rook. Black repositions the knight to e4. White brings out the queen to c2. Black continues with brings the queen out, perhaps prematurely. And check. Continuing, knight to d2. It's black's turn. Advances to d5. White takes the pawn with the pawn. Black develops the knight to d7. On move 25, white knight to b1. Now, black takes the pawn with the queen, addressing the positional weakness. White knight snaps off the knight, relocating the knight. Black now plays queen captures queen. This is a critical moment. White rook takes queen on c2. Black pawn takes knight on e4. White deploys the bishop to g2, neutralizing counterplay. Black advances to f5. White kingside castle. Black responds with maneuvers the knight to f6. On move 35, white brings the rook to c7. Black develops the knight to d5. White continues with rook invades on c5, improving the worst piece. Meanwhile, black pawn moves to b6. A modest advantage. White rook shifts to c1. Black finds a stronger diagonal. White slides the rook to e1. Black king walks to e7. White now plays advances to e3. Black responds with slides the rook to c8. The technique wins the day. Move 45. White plants the bishop on f1, demonstrating perfect technique. It's black's turn. Bishop captures the bishop on f1. White responds with king captures the bishop on f1. Black places the knight on b4. White responds with activates the rook in the endgame. Black brings the knight closer to the action. Next, white repositions the rook. Black rook trades rook, simplifying. White now plays knight takes the rook. Black now plays slides the rook to c8. Move 55. White places the knight on b5. A questionable choice. Black moves the rook to c1, giving check. A textbook endgame technique. Continuing, white activates the king. Black maneuvers the knight to e1, checking the exposed king. Continuing, white activates the king, that doesn't look right. Black activates the knight. White plays king enters the battle, a critical error. Black repositions the rook. The game is essentially over. Checkmate in 2. Check. White king marches up the board. Black the pawn marches forward. Brilliant move. Ilena Krasenkova resigns. Mikhail Tal wins the game.